December 1968. A quiet road outside Vallejo, California. A young couple parked beneath the stars. By morning, both were dead. 7 months later, a letter arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle, opening with 4 words that would haunt a nation. "This is the Zodiac speaking." What followed was a campaign of murder, cryptic ciphers, and taunting messages that turned Northern California into a hunting ground. More than 50 years later, despite DNA analysis, FBI involvement, and a prime suspect pursued for decades, America's most infamous serial murderer has never been identified. To understand why, you have to go back to where it began. Northern California at the end of the 1960s was a region of deep contrast and growing friction. Beneath the surface of the counterculture movement, a quiet instability was spreading through the San Francisco Bay Area. Social norms were shifting rapidly, anti-war protests filled the streets, and a general distrust of authority began to settle over the public. It was an era of transition, where rising crime rates clashed with traditional community life. At the time, local police departments operated in isolated jurisdictions, relying on basic filing systems, forensic photography, and fingerprinting. Modern tools like DNA database tracking did not exist, and investigators worked in silos, rarely sharing information across county lines. Meanwhile, the media environment was entering a powerful new phase. Daily newspapers like the San Francisco Chronicle and evening television broadcasts held unmatched influence over public perception. They possessed the power to turn local events into massive regional stories almost overnight. If a threat appeared, the machinery was already in place to broadcast panic directly into thousands of suburban homes, creating a climate where fear could take root instantly. Late on the night of December 20th, 1968, 19-year-old David Faraday and 17-year-old Betty Lou Jensen drove to a gravel turnout on Lake Herman Road, a quiet lover's lane outside Vallejo. It was their first formal date. Just after 11 o'clock, a car pulled into the darkness beside them. An unidentified shooter forced the couple out of their vehicle and opened fire with a .22 caliber handgun. David Faraday was shot at close range, while Betty Lou Jensen was shot as she attempted to flee. A passing motorist discovered the young couple minutes later, but the attacker had already vanished into the night. Solano County deputies and Vallejo police arrived to find a deliberate crime scene, yet they recovered scant physical evidence beyond spent bullet casings in the gravel. There were no eyewitnesses, no obvious motives, and no clear leads. Local investigators began their work with a blank canvas, having no way of knowing who had taken these 2 young lives. On July 4th, 1969, nearly 7 months after the first double homicide, the investigation entered a more volatile phase. Around midnight, 22-year-old Darlene Ferrin and 19-year-old Michael Majo parked their vehicle at Blue Rock Springs Park, a recreation area 4 miles from Lake Herman Road. A car pulled into the lot behind them, its headlights turned off. A man stepped out, approached the passenger side carrying a bright flashlight, and opened fire with a 9mm handgun. Darlene Ferrin died from her wounds. Michael Majo, though shot in the chest and limbs, survived. His survival provided investigators with their first physical description of the killer. Majo described a white male, approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, with a heavy, beefy build, a round face, and short, light brown curly hair. This first-hand account gave police a tangible target profile, offering far more direction than the empty cartridge cases left at the crime scene. At 12:40 that night, the telephone rang at the Vallejo Police Department. A man speaking in a calm, measured voice claimed responsibility for the shooting. He then confessed to the December murders, telling the operator that he had used a 9mm weapon. He made the call from a public phone booth located just blocks from the Vallejo police station. With this single phone call, the case broke its local boundaries. The perpetrator had moved from an anonymous killer escaping in the dark to a public adversary who directly mocked the authorities. On the afternoon of September 27, 1969, 20-year-old Brian Hartnell and 22-year-old Cecilia Shepard were picnicking on a quiet peninsula at Lake Berryessa in Napa County. A man stepped from the brush wearing an elaborate hand-sewn black hood that squared off at his shoulders. Over the eye slits, he wore clip-on sunglasses, and on his chest hung a dark bib bearing a white, crossed circle symbol. This marked a distinct change in the killer's behavior. Instead of a quick, chaotic ambush under cover of darkness, he had planned a theatrical performance. Threatening the couple with a gun, he bound them with pre-cut lengths of plastic clothesline. He spoke in a calm, polite, monotone voice, claiming he was an escaped convict who only wanted their money and a car. Instead, he drew a 12-inch knife. Shepard was stabbed 10 times. Hartnell, 6. Shepard died the following day, but Hartnell survived. Before fleeing, the attacker walked to Hartnell's car, writing the dates of his previous crimes on the door, capped by his signature cross-circle emblem. On October 11, 1969, the killer bypassed the isolated lakes and dark roads of the suburbs, bringing his campaign directly into the heart of San Francisco. Just before 10 o'clock that night, 29-year-old taxi driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger in the city's theater district. The fare was logged for the upscale neighborhood of Presidio Heights. At the intersection of Washington and Cherry Streets, the passenger shot Stein once in the head at point-blank range. From a home across the street, 3 teenage witnesses watched the suspect inside the cab. They observed a man wiping down the passenger compartment, rifling through Stein's pockets, and cutting away a large portion of the victim's blood-stained shirt. The man then walked calmly into the dark streets of the Presidio. The violence had moved from isolated dark parks into a densely populated city block. By executing a city cab driver in a wealthy residential neighborhood, the killer demonstrated that no one, anywhere in the region, was safe. The scale of the investigation expanded overnight as the San Francisco Police Department took the lead. To build a physical profile of the killer, investigators relied on the fragile, often contradictory memories of those who survived. Michael McJoe recalled a heavy-set, round-faced man of average height in the dark of Blue Rock Springs. Brian Hartnell, bound at Lake Berryessa, could describe only a tall, hooded figure with a flat, polite voice. In San Francisco, 3 teenagers caught a glimpse of a stocky, dark-haired man in the shadows of Presidio Heights. These scattered observations shaped the first composite sketches, but the resulting profiles diverged, reflecting the limits of human recall under extreme trauma. The administrative response was as fractured as the witness accounts. 3 separate jurisdictions, Vallejo, Napa, and San Francisco, controlled separate files. Patrol officers, sheriff's deputies, and city inspectors kept distinct dockets in isolated archives. In 1969, sharing ballistic reports, boot prints, and suspect lists required physical mail or manual telephone calls. Without a centralized database, clues sat in silos across county lines. The investigation rapidly outgrew the capacity of local law enforcement, and the momentum began to stall. On August 1, 1969, the nature of the investigation changed entirely when 3 nearly identical letters arrived at the mailrooms of the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald. These envelopes did not contain anonymous threats from a hidden suspect. Instead, they marked the beginning of a highly public campaign of terror. Each letter demanded that the editors publish a portion of a coded message on their front pages by Friday afternoon, threatening that if they refused, the writer would cruise the area and kill a dozen people over the weekend. Printed at the bottom of the pages was a hand-drawn symbol, a circle with a cross drawn through it. An emblem that would quickly become one of the most recognizable and feared signatures in American crime history. Inside the envelopes, the writer introduced himself to the public with 5 chilling words. "This is the Zodiac speaking." This phrase was more than a greeting. It was a deliberate act of self-invention. By adopting a pseudonym and forcing the region's largest newspapers to act as his messengers, the killer effectively took control of the narrative. The press was no longer merely reporting on the crimes from a distance. They had been drafted into the killer's game, transforming a series of local homicides into a dark, public spectacle played out on the front pages of daily papers. Observers would later argue that this behavior revealed a deep-seated need for control and recognition, though such psychological assessments remained speculative. What was certain was the immediate panic these letters caused across the Bay Area. The 3 letters sent to the newspapers on July 31, 1969, contained more than demands and signatures. They held 3 pieces of a 408-character cipher. Within days, Donald Hardin, a school teacher from Salinas, and his wife Betty decoded the symbols. The message began with a disturbing confession: "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The text went on to compare human targets to wild animals, drawing inspiration from the short story The Most Dangerous Game. While this first code was broken quickly, the next challenge proved far more stubborn. On November 8, 1969, another cryptogram arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle. Known as the 340 Cipher, this block of symbols resisted the efforts of federal code breakers, military intelligence officers, and amateur sleuths for over 50 years. A breakthrough finally arrived in December 2020. An international team of amateur cryptanalysts, David Oranchak, Sam Blake, and Jarl van Eyck, used custom software to crack the complex transposition cipher. The FBI formally confirmed the solution on December 12, 2020. The decoded text began, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me." It mocked a recent television broadcast and declared a complete lack of fear regarding the gas chamber, claiming death would only send him to paradise, where his victims would serve him as slaves. Yet the long-awaited solution offered no real victory. The solved code revealed the mindset of a killer, but it kept his identity hidden in the shadows. In late 1969, the Federal Bureau of Investigation entered the case, deploying its behavioral science unit to assist local departments. Federal agents constructed a criminal profile pointing to an offender with a powerful need for public attention and a likely background in the military or law enforcement. Yet, in an era before automated databases, federal assistance remained limited to manual fingerprint comparison, handwriting analysis, and basic chemical review of the letters. As investigators vetted thousands of tips, Arthur Lee Allen became the most discussed suspect in the history of the case. A former school teacher and Navy veteran, Allen lived in Vallejo, near the early crime scenes, and regularly visited Lake Berryessa. In 1971, an acquaintance named Don Cheney reported that Allen had spoken of a desire to kill couples, write letters to police, and adopt the name Zodiac. Allen also owned a Zodiac brand wristwatch featuring the identical cross-circle emblem. Despite these suggestive details, the circumstantial connections never translated into legal proof. Forensic document examiners analyzed Allen's handwriting against the killer's script and declared it did not match. His fingerprints also failed to match those recovered from the crime scenes and the envelopes. Other figures, including Lawrence Kane and Richard Gaikowski, were proposed by different investigators, but these theories remained speculative and unproven. Because the physical evidence never anchored to a single individual, the suspect field widened rather than closed, leaving the true identity in the dark. In the decades following the final confirmed attack, investigators turned to the developing field of DNA technology, hoping modern science could accomplish what 1960s methods could not. Forensic laboratories applied contemporary testing to the surviving evidence, targeting the saliva residue left on stamps, the paper envelopes, and the clothesline rope recovered from the crime scene at Lake Berryessa. But these attempts faced immediate, systemic obstacles. In the late 1960s, DNA preservation was non-existent. Over the subsequent decades, physical handling by investigators, reporters, and lab technicians introduced foreign DNA to the items, while basic storage in standard cardboard boxes caused severe biological degradation. Because the physical evidence remained split across 3 separate local jurisdictions and the FBI, coordinating unified laboratory reviews was a slow, fragmented process. The partial, low-quantity genetic profiles recovered so far have only been strong enough to exclude specific suspects, leaving the case without a verified, legally binding public identification. This ongoing forensic silence allowed the mystery to take root in the national consciousness. The Zodiac transitioned from an active police investigation into a permanent fixture of popular memory, inspiring a wave of true crime books, investigative documentaries, and David Fincher's 2007 feature film. While this endless media attention has kept the names of the victims alive, it has also fueled a relentless, distracting industry of false confessions, amateur hoaxes, and speculative conspiracy theories that continue to muddy and tangle the official historical record. Today, the Vallejo Police Department, the Napa County Sheriff's Office, the San Francisco Police Department, and the FBI maintain that the case remains open and active. Present-day investigators actively filter out the surrounding mythology, private detective theories, and internet speculation, choosing to focus exclusively on credible, physical evidence that can withstand rigorous modern scientific testing. Until that conclusive forensic breakthrough occurs, the identity of the Zodiac remains lost in the shadows. If you enjoy real history and true crime documentaries, subscribe and join us for the next mystery. Today, the physical evidence sits in cold storage, but the digital search never ends. The Zodiac didn't just escape justice. He built a monument of fear that outlived him, proving that anonymity can be the ultimate weapon. Until a name fills that blank space, his shadow remains cast over us all. Subscribe to help us uncover more of history's unsolved mysteries.